Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Candidates Tournament, the most important tournament of 2026 in the world of chess. The winner of the Candidates will go on to face the world champion, and it will be either Gukesh or Zhu Jiner, depending on the winner of the respective candidates event. Now, this is round number 7 out of 14. We are at the halfway point, and amongst the gentlemen, Jawakhir Sundarov is absolutely destroying everybody. He has 5.5 out of 6. If today he wins, he would have 6.5 out of 7. But should he draw, he will unlock the most powerful 2-digit combination in the world. This is a meme that has transcended a small percentage of the global population. It is truly an international and, dare I say, potentially intergalactic phenomenon. I would not be surprised if aliens know about 6-7. So that is the story of the round. The candidates is effectively over. Not quite, but, you know, and now we are in search of greater storylines in the form of 6-7. I don't know where the text down here went. Wait a minute. There we go. I don't know why that just disappeared. Anyway, look at that. We got the standings over there. Sundarov, 5.5 out of 6. Caruana with 4. We have Giri with 3. What will happen today? Sundarov opens with d4. He's been rocking the queen's pawn the entire tournament. We have a queen's gambit decline. The meta now is to play knight f6, e6, and d5. And one position that we have not had that much of, as everybody is trying to play the Catalan or, you know, putting the bishop here, etc., is this position. Now, we've seen bishop 2e7 here in a couple of games, and then white has played bishop f4 and, you know, traded on d5. That's what Sundarov did in the first game. Here, Giri, with the black pieces, plays bishop b4. Bishop b4 is an aggressive move. It pins the knight to the king, and it is known as the Ragozin defense, R-A-G-O-Z-I-N. There are many, many ways that you can play this with white. Sundarov counterpins. He's like, you can pin me, I'm going to pin you. By the way, the difference between these two pins is that this one is called relative and this one is called absolute, because you can absolutely not move your knight, but you could move your knight. You would just lose your queen. H6, Giri attacks the bishop, and Jawakhir plays a very solid line. He could go back. He just takes, and then he plays e3, and after black castles, he plays the move rook to c1. So now if the bishop takes the knight, he will not have to damage his pawn structure. His play would involve maybe queenside pressure. He's going to develop his bishop to d3, and he's going to castle. He's going to have a very chill game. The impact of the bishop pair is really not going to be felt. It's not very substantial. Anish takes on c4. We have bishop c4, and he lashes out at the center with the move c5. And then something a little bit peculiar happens after castles. Pawn takes, the knight jumps to the middle, attacking the queen because now it's no longer pinned to the king. Queen goes here. In this position, there are several approaches. Historically, knight takes, I think, has been played. White can also throw in the move a3, but Sundarov takes like this, and then he plays queen e2, and here Anish Giri spends a lot of time. There are some ideas, of course, for white. I mean, white is going to put the rook where the queen was, and the queen is going to be here. You could potentially line up an attack against the king, get the queen and the bishop on this diagonal, because black doesn't have any kingside defenders. It's just pawns. This is not a massive attempt from the white side at creating problems, but as we know, Sundarov has posed many problems to people in this tournament. And after rook d1, he's still not thinking. He plays bishop b5 targeting the knight, which Anish defends. Then he plays knight c5 instantly. So Giri is still in the memorized preparation of Sundarov. Bishop a8 is a nice move. Now Sundarov plays the move d5, smashing forward into the position. Black takes. We trade the queens. By the way, it was more accurate, I think, on a low engine depth to trade the rook in this position. Anish plays the slightly worse way and plays rook db8. Knight takes a5 is apparently not best. I think it's possible. I think here you can play bishop to a6 to defend the knight. But this is the position that we get to work with. So Sundarov has this. He has 2 rooks and 2 knights, and black has 2 pretty split, isolated pawns that he's going to try to push forward into the white position. If I'm playing with white here, I move one of these rooks up to enable the movement of this knight to the middle. Then I try to advance on the queen side. And Sundarov actually, you know, he trades, and this is a very nice passed pawn. This pawn's a little bit weak, and I think white has very decent chances here. Like, if you give me if you show me this position and tell me that the player with white is Magnus Carlsen, I would say he probably wins 6, 7 times out of 10. And that's what Sundarov starts to do. He begins to put the grind on Giri, you know, and in the first round of this tournament, Anish Giri lost a bit of an end game, late middle game to Pragg. And at this moment, you know, there was a shot here that Sundarov could have gone for this pawn with rook c5. Losing this pawn for black is not the biggest deal in the world, but that might have been an idea. Overall, Sundarov kind of did as much as he could. He did put very, very strong pressure on Anish. Here, rook c5 and rook h2, there was a moment here white could have maybe gone, actually, I think it was in this position. He could have went rook c1. Anish kind of made a pass-back move here, king g7, but rook c1 with the idea to go rook h1 and rook h8 and rook h7, you know, checkmating ideas, were very dangerous. Very dangerous. This king is kind of on its own. Rook c1 is a very serious idea to put a lot of pressure. You know, the king could walk over here, kind of be close to both pawns. But Sundarov actually rushes. You'll notice that Sundarov has a near 1 hour time advantage. So he really is very, very close at putting this game away. He goes this way, though, and ultimately gets a position where he picks up this pawn, but he doesn't spend much time at all. Even here, he could have maybe walked his king over and taken his time, but he kind of underestimates this defensive resource from Giri, a very nice defensive resource where he sacrifices his rook. I'm not going to yell it because my throat still kind of hurts. But, yeah, this is actually a shocking draw. So a rook versus a bishop with no pawns on the board is a draw. Now, when there are pawns on the board, you try to win the endgame by, you know, promoting one of the pawns. Not going to be possible when all the pawns are on the same side. Like this, it's just not possible. I know it might be shocking. Here, Anish Giri misses a beautiful resource. He could have just sacrificed this bishop and given checks, and white cannot escape. He would have to stay near the king, and, you know, he can't run away. Anish Giri, instead of, you know, forcing a draw in a flashy fashion, instead goes for this, and this is a dead draw. It's actually kind of insane that this is a draw. White walks the king all the way in, but has no way to progress. Black has created a fortress here, so every square is controlled. And white can't make any progress. And, well, after some shuffling for about an hour, the game ends in a draw. And Sundarov has 6 out of 7 points. The man is not only winning the candidates, he's also supplying memes for the international audience of the candidates tournament. Now, if you are too old or too grumpy to appreciate 6-7, I don't really know what to tell you. But generally, when the whole world gets behind something and it's, you know, positive, I think we should, you know, rejoice. Anyway, Sundarov's still winning the tournament by a lot. Let's go around the horn. You know, can Hikaru get a win? Keep in mind in the standings, Hikaru's only got 2 points. He's got to get a couple of wins. Yesipenko, Wei Yi, both guys have 2 points. Somebody's got to get a win. And of course, we will go to the last matchup of the day, 4 versus 3. You know, one of these guys can win a game and potentially make a run for it, but you're going to have to trample all over one another. So Bluebaum, and by the way, I have been informed it is pronounced Bluebaum. Blue, like you with the 2 dots. It's not Bluebaum. It's Bluebaum. Now, so if there's a German audience, which there is, it's like the 3rd largest audience on the channel. I got a comment yesterday from an American that said the way I pronounce Bluebaum is cringe. Now, I will never trust an American to pronounce anything international whatsoever. So, you know, let me know in the comments, but I'm pretty sure that is how it's pronounced. I'm even trying to pronounce all the Chinese names correctly, which is not so simple, you know. But anyway, Bluebaum versus Hikaru. We have a Queen's Gambit declined. I was actually kind of shocked by this. Like, I get that Hikaru doesn't want to play like a Dutch defense because, you know, then he's just going to be worse. But he plays into a Queen's Gambit decline, and I mean, it's just not an opening where it's easy to play for a win with black. Plays for h6. We've seen this already in the candidates. Pawn takes, and bishop f4, and e3, and bishop d3, like super ultra solid line. He plays a3, does Bluebaum, and black now cannot play the bishop to b4. White also even has vague ideas to advance on the queen side. It's just kind of a waiting move, though. c6, and then, well, you know, ultra solid, and he just attacks the center immediately. So we have this trade of pieces, castles, and Hikaru has to liberate his position with e5, and now bishop c2. And here Hikaru, once again in the opening, thought for 30 minutes, not 1 hour, but he thought for 30 minutes, and he played bishop c7, which is the best move. kind of funny that the best move for both players is stepping out like this. But I mean, what do we know about Bluebaum's games with white? They never happen. They never take place. Like, he just plays the queen's pawn, and if with black you're solid, he's... Well, in this game, you know, Hikaru, I wouldn't say was completely solid. You know, Bluebaum played queen d4. Hikaru played this cool idea, knight e5, and if you take the black queen, black takes your knight first, and then, you know, but queen e4, threatening mate, and now a very cool idea, king h1. So Bluebaum was up an hour on the clock. This is mate. Your knight is still hanging, kind of a flashy move. None of it really matters because, you know, this was the position from the opening. You're not winning this with black. Hikaru developed his bishop. Bluebaum played bishop e3. And actually, he grabbed the pawn. And, like, I mean, there were some questions here for Hikaru's position for sure. Because, you know, bishop b6 is a very cool idea. If you take on b6, like... So, look, bishop b6. If you take on b6, there is bishop b3 with an attack on f7. And the reason this doesn't work in this position, I mean, doesn't work as a strong statement, is that there's queen f4. So it's kind of a flashy move, bishop b6, Bluebaum, you know, flexing the brilliance. But you're forced into a situation like this, and this is not a position that black will ever win. Black will, you know, white is going to go queen f6, bishop e5. It looks like you're going to get mated. Luckily, you can run away, and there's never a mate. Hikaru tries to go to an unpleasant queen endgame. You know, Bluebaum applies a little bit of pressure here. And tries to threaten checkmates, but there are no checkmates, and the boys make a draw. I gotta tell you, though, like, I mean, I get it on the one hand, but, like, I would have expected, I have no idea what nowadays, a King's Indian, a little bit of an offbeat Queen's Indian, like, Hikaru doesn't have a lot of time to catch up. He's 3.5 points behind, you know? I mean, maybe he just thinks it's impossible. 3.5 with 7 rounds to go is not possible at this level. I mean, it's just not. Like, Sundarov would have to win multiple games in a row, and then even if he did, for a player with 2 points to catch up, they would need to win multiple games in a row. It's not even about drawing. So, yeah, kind of crazy that already at the halfway point, half of the players are not going to be able to catch up. But then there was this game, all right? Then there was this game, folks. And before you click off, I've seen the average watch time of these recaps. It's around 12 minutes. Just give me like 2-3 more minutes of your time, all right? Do me a favor. You got to look at this game. This game was crazy. So it's a matchup of players that are obviously struggling a little bit. We have a Petrov and Wei Yi probably happy to make a draw. Okay, queen e2, knight e5. Now, the reason why this opening was so strange to me, Yesipenko got a 30-minute time advantage from the opening. And Wei Yi was just playing solid, traded some pieces, bishop d6. Now, at this point with white, you can play bishop takes and then castle long. You can also just castle long. For reasons I don't fully understand, like, I think Yesipenko wanted to start an attack. So he went back. He went back to d2. That is a massive mistake. And it is not obvious why, because, I mean, it does look like white is going to play g4, h4, long castle. After the move queen e8, white is nearly lost. It is a extremely unpleasant position. Why? How can that be? Queen e8, like what? How did that in any way stop long castle? Queen a4. You can't defend your pawn with the king because your rook hangs. Normally your pieces are connected. And if you play a3, well, that's really cute. I'm just going to sack my bishop. And the problem here is that you have no defense for your king. If you play king to b1, I will play knight e3 and literally mate you crisscross applesauce style. Every square in front of the king is covered, and then you would have to lose your queen. So, queen e8 somehow, I mean, Yesipenko clearly overlooked this move. Clearly overlooked how powerful this move was. Yesipenko is already losing. He now needs to play the only move, which is king d1, bro. King d1. I mean, if you got to play king d1, bro, I mean, I think it's just pack it up. I mean, and now this is the Wei Yi we've been missing for 6 rounds. I mean, this is clearly the Wei Yi. Like, Wei Yi 10 years ago, you were scared when you got paired against him. King d1, and he just, like a shark smelling its prey in the water. Queen a4 check. The king continues to run over. Wei Yi understands an attack is about to brew. He plays b5. b5, sensing the danger. Yesipenko plays knight f4. He's spiraling, right? I mean, the best move might have been g4. He plays knight f4. Here comes Wei Yi with c5. bringing all the resources behind the queen. You can't take because that would open up the bishop and the knight, right? The bishop and the queen on the knight. Bishop d3 from Yesipenko. Wei Yi chops down the defense, right? He's like the Grim Reaper knocking on the door. Here comes bishop back to c2. The queen slides back out of danger. Yesipenko takes back, c takes d4. Bishop d7, very calm move. Opening up the c file for a potential infiltration. The king has manually walked himself over here. That is depressing. That is sad stuff. Rook c8, and it looks like white has kind of created a defense. And now Wei Yi sacrifices the rook. Now, I just want to say that move deserves a mini brilliant. It's given a question mark, which is disgusting by the computer. And the reason is, the computer thinks there were multiple things that black could have done. Like you could have played rook e8, you could have made some improving moves. Rook c4 is such a disrespectful move, and it's going to get a whole lot worse than that, because in this position, knight e2 is played, and it's clear that you are setting up some sort of business over here. Wei Yi plays knight e7. Now this gets a brilliant for some reason. He just left the rook here because if it's taken, the light square infiltration with the bishop here is just completely fatal for white. Now, in this position, there was a move that black could have played that wins the game on the spot. It's an engine move. It's so filthy and absurd. I'm going to show it to you right now. The computer thinks that the best counterplay here for white is to play a3, b3, and slowly crawl out of the position, which is why the top engine move here is bishop a3. Bro, if you play bishop a3 in a tournament, they will pause the clock and you will urinate in a cup at the board. Like, bishop a3 simply removes the ability for white to push these pawns. And if you take the bishop, you lose, because I threatened this bishop, and then when you take here, now the b file is just fatal. I mean, the rook is not a rook. It's just like a tall piece of furniture. Like, it's just, you just can't move past it. And yeah, white just can't defend. Bishop a3 is filth. Now, Wei Yi did not play bishop a3. G4, he went like this, and b4 comes in, and bishop b5, just an incredible move. The rook is a Trojan rook. You take the rook, you choke. Like, just, it's not going to work. He takes it because there's nothing else to do. Bishop takes is absolutely brutal, and now white has to go here, and bishop d3. You just crawl into the position. Bishop b5, bishop c4, bishop d3, and the game is going to end on light squares. It's going to end on light squares, and the game, the attack, began on light squares. Queen e8 was a brutal move for the light squares. Bishop b5, he takes, and Yesipenko gets absolutely obliterated. Like, I don't even know how else to summarize this. This is Wei Yi from like 7-8 years ago. Wei Yi pulverizes his opponent. You gotta feel for Yesipenko. I like Yesipenko. He's a nice guy, humble guy, very strong player, you know, charismatic, good with interviews. But he's on 2 out of 7, and it's not gonna get any better. At the halfway point of the candidates, everybody knows who's the target to get a point off of. And they're going to go after Yesipenko. They're going to feast on him. So he is going to have a really tough second half. He has a rest day coming up, so that's kind of nice to bounce back. Maybe Wei Yi will get some confidence up. Having said that, this game could have been a draw in like 2 hours if you took this and castled, or maybe, you know, Yesipenko even could have won. This is a brutal blunder. Queen e8 almost ends the game on the spot. Like, you cannot defend this position. Yeah, king d1, you know, he could have went for g4, but yeah, brutal stuff. Completely brutal stuff. Now, Pragg and Fabi, somebody's got to win here, right? Like, somebody at some point has got to beat the other, and they have to catch Sundarov. So we have a Queen's Gambit, but we have a Slav defense. So Fabi goes for a very original approach. He does not play the semi-Slav with e6, all right? Doesn't play this. He takes on c4. It's called the open Slav, all right? Historically, there are some lines here. A4, E4, G3. E3 is very solid, but obviously bad because black will play B5. So A4 stops B5. Bishop F5 is the main line, knight E5. And now, historically, black plays knight here, then queen here, and then pushes this pawn. So knight here, you take, queen C7, E5. Fabi plays queen C7 first. Okay, I mean, there's probably nothing, right? So he just takes, Pragg. Actually, here, there are some nuances, and maybe white could have even gone for some sort of kingside expansion, like F3, E4 is thematic, G3, bishop G2 is thematic, but he just takes, but he spends 4 minutes because he's never seen this move order. And then Fabi goes here. So he has no plan to play e5 now. He's not going to push the pawn in the middle. He wants to play knight b4, and he wants to put his rook on d8. This is some utterly obscure nonsense. Like, this is fascinating stuff. So Fabi playing for a win with black. f3, best move to play e4. Rook d8, e4, bishop e6. Great position for white, looking like it, right? But black knows all the nuances. Now the best move is played, knight to e5. The idea of this move is he wants to shatter the pawn structure, I would imagine, which is why the knight moves. Now he develops the bishop to e3, and Fabi glues the knight, and it will never be removed there. And now black, if you give him a couple more moves, will play g6, bishop g7, and castle, and have a very nice position. These pawns can't really move forward, which is why Pragg decides, I want to trade the light squared bishop with you, okay? And I think Fabi still here understood all of the ideas of the opening, because if he took, then that would be bad. Instead, he immediately goes for tactics with knight to d7, rook, queen. That means this is a ghost defender. We have bishop takes e6, knight takes e5, and here Pragg plays castles, which is a cool move. And the idea is quite straightforward. If you take my completely hanging bishop, I cannot take your knight, but you've also kind of ruined your structure for the game. But now I pin you, so now I'm threatening to take the knight with the bishop instead of the pawn, and now your only move is this. And then I take with the queen, and then you take, and then I take, and then you take, and then I take. Oh, sorry, I can pin you. I can also take on a5. I think he's going to take on a5 now, and this is the position. So all of that drama, all of that chaos, this was Fabi's best attempt at playing it for a win. I mean, you got to give the man props. He shows up with an opening idea that I've never seen in my life, and I used to play this with black. He gets Pragg down like 30, 40 minutes on the clock. It's a completely wild position. Pragg actually manages to navigate it very nicely. He's still down an hour, which is mind-blowing. Hot take. I feel like in the age of so much cutting-edge opening preparation, I think 2 hours or 90 minutes plus 30-second bonus time, which is what the women are playing, I think it's too much time. I don't think we need to play a type of chess where you shuffle all the back row of the pieces all the time, like every game, because then we have no structure and it's really hard to understand what's going on. I think give the players an hour, because that way Pragg won't have an hour. All these games where like Hikaru is down an hour or like, you know, etc. The players will have an hour. You got an hour. Figure it out, you know? I think it's worth investigating or discussing. Anyway, Fabi develops the rest of his pieces, and this is the position after the opening. And black has dynamic compensation here. He doesn't even have compensation. I mean, he has dynamic, maybe slight advantage here, because he has such a powerful knight targeting b2. But maybe the game could have developed a little bit better. It doesn't really develop too much. The players make a draw. And that is the situation in the men's group. Wei Yi moves to 3. And yeah, Wei Yi now has 3 points. I think Hikaru's the only one on 2.5, because Bluebaum drew and Yesipenko lost. Wild. And on the women's side, the games today were fascinating. So the first appetizer game, this ended in about, let me switch the standings. Keep in mind, these are your standings. Much closer tournament. Actually, I think Bibisara has 2.5. I apologize. She does not have 2 points. That's a mistake by me. She has 2.5. So this field, very, very close. And this is a matchup of leader versus last place, but it's only 1.5 points. In any case, black goes for a Sicilian. And, I mean, Anna Muzuchuk played it extremely solidly. Did not give Bibisara a chance. She kind of was hoping that maybe her opponent would go crazy. But this game never really got going. They kind of ended it in an hour and a half. Muzuchuk gains another half a point, 4.5 out of 7 at the halfway point. Historically, that is a good spot to be in, 4.5 out of 7 at the halfway point of the tournament. And Bibisara gets to 3. Now, this game was wild. So Vaishali picked up a little bit of momentum with an important win, and she's playing against Tan Zhongyi, who's 2.5 out of 6. In this game, black chose either the Philidor she was going for, or she plays the Peer's defense. Bishop d3, e5, c3, and yeah, the opening gets completely crazy. I mean, I've never seen somebody play like this against the kind of the Peer's, the double fianchetto, the Philidor, whatever you want to call this. White went for f4, which was a very sharp line. And then she like tried to continue her attack with knight g3, maybe, you know, some sort of f5. Black has a lot of counter punching at the center, F, D, E, maybe D5 ideas. She went bishop A6. It's a very sharp position. It's kind of tough to play the perfect moves. Rook F3 was played. And then we got takes. And Tan Zhongyi went C5, hitting the center. So now white has to do something. E5 is a very nice idea. She drops the knight out of the middle. So now the pawn is chopping. If white loses all control of the center, white is not going to have an attack. So she's trying to restabilize the position a little bit. We have bishop E4 targeting the rook. The rook simply moves. And now rook A3, out of nowhere. It's not even the attack. It's the fact that the bishop is hanging and the pawn is hanging. So you got to play this move. Knight B8. And Vaishali sacks the rook. She doesn't see a way forward on the king side. She could have. She could have went knight F3 and kind of continued. She goes for this. And here, you know, black will probably have to give the rook back. So she doesn't. She could have played knight B4. She ends up giving away the two pieces and trying to trap the bishop on the outskirts of the board. And then Tan here builds up a winning advantage here. So she is chopping down the white center. Vaishali is in a constant threat of queen E1 and all this falling apart. And pawn takes D6. Vaishali has a minute on the clock versus 43. So Vaishali frequently will get into time trouble. And this actually happens again in this game. A totally dominant position for Tan Zhongyi. All the pieces have swarmed. And yeah, D3 on the board, crushing. She can play bishop takes B2 here. Bishop takes B2. And then, you know, the rook would move and then you would play knight C4. But, okay, I mean, she has to find the way forward. Now, she's 37 minutes. White has 56 seconds. She spends a long time. She can play rook E8, bishop B2, queen C2. Queen C2 is a weird move. Chooses knight E4, which apparently is not the right move. Apparently, the knight needed to stay put for C4. The rook needed to be here because it had to help protect the pawn. She spends 20 minutes and doesn't choose the right approach. And suddenly, Vaishali zips back into the game by threatening a trade of pieces. And the reason this is equal is because even though you temporarily lose a pawn, you will lose that pawn. And this endgame is actually holdable. So Tan Zhongyi navigates the game incorrectly. And now all she has is this outside pawn, which does look good because, you know, you got the bishop here. But Vaishali is very much back in the game here. She makes a couple of quick moves, you know, rook A6, etc. And Tan Zhongyi, with 17 minutes on the clock, picks up her rook, slides it down the board to make room for her pawn to go forward, and chooses the worst possible square. She plays rook A1, and she lets go, and she just sits there without even pressing the clock. Because you have put your rook on the same square, at the same diagonal as all your pieces. And white sacks her rook. Vaishali snaps off the bishop, and bishop D4 hits this and this. This reminds me of Noderbek Eric Icy. Remember that game? Like just blundering a piece in one move? And if you give a check on F1, I play here. Of course, if I go there, you take my rook, but I counterattack. Tan Zhongyi goes from completely winning to completely losing down a piece in an endgame, and Vaishali just cleans this up. This is an easily winning position because what you do here with white is you wait. The king will stay put, and what you can do here is, you know, you want to make a run to this pawn like this, and king G3, you cannot take, no, you probably can take. Not right away, though, because there's A3. You have to be very careful in which order you do this, but you can play like bishop C5 here, and then the king would come here, and then you would, I guess you would put the bishop here, and then maybe on C1. This is the way you would win this position. And if the king stays here, now I can take, and now if A3, you take here, and bishop B2. You take all the pawns. It's a little bit, you know, the technique, but rook A1 is, yeah, that's really tough. I mean, that's really tough to explain. Absolutely brutal mistake. From completely winning to completely equal to completely losing. And Tan Zhongyi stays on 2.5 going into the break. Really, really tough for her. And Vaishali has 4. Vaishali is now in the running to win the candidates tournament. So far, an incredible performance from her. On that note, we will move to another very important matchup. Goryachkina versus Zhu Jiner. This is a matchup of world enders. Goryachkina, ultra elite player, and world championship experience. And Zhu Jiner is the highest rated woman in the world and has had an absolutely monster year. You look at the standings; she is a point away from first. I mean, both these women are easy contenders to win this tournament. This was a very high-level game. Simplifying this down to an audience level is not going to be so simple. First things first, it was a Spanish. It was a Ruy Lopez, which is an extremely popular opening. Knight f6, and here Black chooses not to play the closed Ruy Lopez with b5 and bishop e7. Black chooses the open Ruy Lopez, where you play castles, knight takes pawn. Here, usually after d4, we have b5 and d5 played, which is very popular. Instead, Black chooses bishop e7, which is not the most, it's not the most common. It's not the main line. Rook e1 hits the knight. Now Black hits back against the bishop, and the players enter a very peculiar line where White takes the knight on e4. Now, rather than Black taking the bishop right away, Black makes an improving move first, putting a pawn in the middle and opening the bishop and opening the queen in some ways, hitting the rook. White is like, well, right now I'm up a piece, so I'm going to take the pawn on e5, because if you take my rook, I take the knight and I hit your queen. So now Black takes, and then we get this position. And here, White is going to apply some pressure on the dark squares. That's basically going to be the game. It's going to be a game of knight versus bishop. White has a very minuscule but felt advantage of knight for bishop. The bishop is nice, but if the bishop were to ever put pressure on this diagonal, that's kind of the only way it can become useful. And for the rest of the game, it's going to be Goryachkina trying to win an endgame. Very Soviet school. Like, this is Capablanca style right now. This is Goryachkina doing her best Jose Raul Capablanca impression, legend of chess of the early 20th century. He would win this position, but I think back then some of those players had the grandmaster skills of like a 1900 level modern player. No disrespect to any. I'm not naming names. Yeah, I mean, here White is going to try, There's even a question to be had of like, can White send it to a knight versus bishop endgame, which is very fascinating, something like this. And then if Black is not accurate, I guess that loses a pawn. If Black plays too passively in an endgame like this, look at how quickly the dark squares can become fatal for one of the sides. Like here, White is just much better. In fact, if you play knight a4 and infiltrate, you're just like winning. So you have to have some endgame skills. You got to understand piece dynamics here. And Goryachkina is going to do her best. You see, she's going to try to defend her position. Black has the same split pawns as Giri had, but in that game, there were a lot more pieces. Here, there's a lot fewer, right? A lot less, fewer. I don't know. You guys get mad when I use the wrong word sometimes. But Goryachkina tries and she gets to a spot right around here where, like, I almost cannot, like, right here, I cannot believe there is no way to mate, like, knight h6 and whatever, but there's no way to mate. The Chinese grandmaster does a great job here creating counterplay with queen c2 and d2 and d1. It's like a miracle there's no checkmate here. She goes queen d4, and ultimately, it's a very high-level battle, but it ends like many high-level battles do. It ends with a hard-fought and a very high-level draw. Because here, Black just has a pawn that's constantly threatening to promote, and White cannot make any progress or release the defenses. And so this game ends in a draw. Goryachkina and Zhu Jiner move to 3.5 points each. Muzychuk has 4.5 points. We will take a look at the standings in a moment after we look at the final game of the day. Now, this last game, for the first time in, I don't know, maybe ever, I actually have to record, I have to record a recap of a game as it is still ongoing. Hikaru is famous for sometimes doing this, especially when at the time of recording the video, the game is still going, and 30 minutes later, it's likely going to end in a draw. The reason I have to cover this game now is because I have to leave. I did not expect this game to go so long. This is the game between Deshmukh and Caruana Lagno. And this game, I hit record because there was a claim made in the endgame on the 115th move that it's going to be a draw, 3-time repetition, and it was an incorrect claim, and that's going to take like 10 more minutes. Folks, exciting times. Let's get into the chess. Divya played the English opening, then she played this kind of sideline in the ready of e3, b3, bishop b2. The most important thing about this game to understand is she played a very provocative approach, got a very interesting battle where she played against this IQP, isolated queenside pawn, isolated queen's pawn, not queenside pawn. And from the opening, she won the pawn. And there was a moment here that Lagno could have played knight to g5, removing the knight from the middle, applying pressure on this diagonal. and that would have been sufficient. But she went she went with her queen to the king side, and after Divya made this trade, the attack for black does not get through. The bishop has to either leave or trade itself off, and after this swap of knight on f4 for bishop on g4, Divya played queen d5. Wasn't even the best move, actually g5, using the pawn as like as an attacking piece, and then going for queen c2 was a little bit stronger. But she only had about didn't have a huge amount of time here, but she had a plus 2.6 advantage in this position, did Divya. And it was, I mean, it was looking like this was going to be the first game that I have done. Bishop a3 is even stronger with ideas to trade and control on the diagonal. She goes for queen h5, comes in with her rook, and clearly has a totally dominant endgame here. Now, she could have swapped off the rooks and tried to win a symmetrical knight and bishop endgame with one extra pawn, but it's a little bit challenging. It's not so simple. You know, human beings aren't engines. She puts on the pressure here. She's not Magnus. I don't actually know exactly how Magnus would even play this position. You know, she got to make progress. Like, you're up a pawn, but like, you don't win an endgame being up a pawn. You got to actually go to the other side, use your advantage, and win it. And as you see here, there was a lot of shuffling. There was a lot of attempting to improve the position. Lagno actually played fantastic. She got like the perfect defensive setup. She was sitting there waiting for Divya to do something. Apparently this knight trade is inaccurate. Like, instead of trading the knights, you have to continue to try to make improving moves. And Lagno now has nearly equalized the position. It's not even completely understandable how it went from plus 2.7 to plus 0.5. Clearly, instead of going to this endgame, white needed to, you know, not rush with the queen trader on move 26. She needed to play bishop to a3 and then infiltrate and control the e7 square. That was very important to make this infiltration more powerful. But yeah, like, we go to an endgame. She ends up trading the knights, tries to trade the knights, tries to trade the knight. Then she trades the bishop for the knight, and she's still up a pawn, but the black bishop is so strong now, and black being down a pawn doesn't even matter anymore. And ultimately, she continues to try to make progress. We're in the 70s now. She's still a pawn up, but there's nothing she can do with her extra pawn. It's there. More on that later. What ends up happening is she goes for a knight infiltration, which looks very promising on the 89th move, but she loses her extra pawn. She loses the extra pawn, and she doesn't have anything. Kind of heartbreaking for Divya fans, because she was winning this game for like 70 moves, and then we went here, and now this is the endgame where we are. And even though you're going to probably win this pawn, which she did, this is just the draw. So they have been playing this position for the last like 30 minutes, and the point is that white can't make any progress. White's best hope is to get the rook to f5. It's never going to happen. She's trying and trying and trying and trying, and short of anything catastrophic happening here, it's just going to be a draw. There's no way for the king to run in and win anything because the rook would go after this. If the king gets here and the rook defends this, it's still a draw because this king comes to f6. So they've been playing this position for quite some time now. I wasn't going to make the recap while they were still playing, but there's no way through. And then around here, after rook d3, Lagno claimed 3-time repetition of position. If position occurs 3 times, it's a draw. That didn't happen. The king moving to b3 was, I think, fresh. And so she claimed it, and it was incorrect. And they have been playing this position, and, you know, Divya is still trying. There are 122 moves into this game. They got about 20 moves to go at the time of finishing this recap. In all likelihood, it's going to be a draw. If Divya manages to win this or lose this, frankly, it would be impressive. So this one will likely end in a draw, which, if you go to the standings, it would mean that we have 4.5, 4, 3.5, 3.5, 3, 3.5, 3.5. We're going to have 4 people on 3.5. Half of the women are going to have 3.5 points. Vaishali in clear second with 4, and then 4.5 for Muzichuk. Yeah, and this tournament is, you know, somebody's going to have to beat Sundarov in the second half of the tournament, and really only Fabiano Caruana has a chance to win the candidates. Anish, Giri, and Prague are 2.5 points out with 7 rounds to go. Half of the men, I think, are mathematically eliminated. It would be an unprecedented comeback to come back from a 3-point deficit with 7 games to go. I mean, it really would be. Yeah, and crazy, Hikaru in 7th there, and hasn't won a game. He and Yesipenko and Bluebaum have not won a game, all looking for their first victory of the tournament. So tomorrow is a rest day. Tomorrow I'll have a fun upload for you. And we continue. And also on the 7th of April, I think we have the Netflix special coming out, the Magnus Hahn. So appreciate your support as always. And yeah, get out of here.